They asked me not to give tacky gifts to my grandson, so I gave him one, the cancellation of the credit card I paid for. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. The turkey was perfect, golden brown skin, juices sizzling in the pan. I'd been roasting Thanksgiving turkeys for 40 years, and this one might have been my best yet. Not that anyone would notice. Mom, did you hear what we said? Nathan's voice cut through my thoughts. My son, 44, with his father's jaw and my stubborn streak, was staring at me across the dining table. His wife Melissa sat beside him, scrolling through her phone beneath the table. Did she think I couldn't see? I'm sorry, dear. I was thinking about dessert. I smiled, the way mothers do when they're trying to keep peace at holiday gatherings. Charlotte cleared her throat. We were discussing Harmony Gardens, Mom. The retirement community I told you about? My daughter, always the practical one. The corporate attorney who solved problems for a living, and apparently, I had become her newest problem to solve. I'm perfectly happy in my home, I said, cutting into my turkey. The home Robert and I had shared for 40 years. The home where both my children had taken their first steps. The home I had maintained immaculately since Robert's heart attack 5 years ago. The house is too big for you, Mom, Nathan said, exchanging looks with Charlotte. And the upkeep is becoming too much. My garden keeps me busy, but I manage just fine. Melissa finally looked up from her phone. Eleanor, we're concerned about your finances too. The property taxes alone. My finances are in order, I interrupted, perhaps too sharply. Robert left everything well organized. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Then Charlotte spoke, her voice artificially gentle. Mom, we're just talking about the future. We think it's time to consider selling the house. Property values in the neighborhood are at an all-time high. And we'd make sure you're comfortable, Nathan added. The money from the sale would more than cover a nice unit at Harmony Gardens. Plus, you'd have plenty left for, he paused, whatever you might need. Whatever they might need was what he meant. I wasn't born yesterday. We could split what's left of the proceeds, Charlotte said quietly to Nathan, as if I couldn't hear. After setting up Mom's care fund, of course. She's right here, you know, I said, putting down my fork. Talking about me while I'm sitting at the table? Robert would have never allowed this. Nathan's face hardened at the mention of his father. Dad's not here anymore. Mom, and you need to be practical. Before I could respond, the front door opened with a bang. Sorry I'm late. It was Tyler, Nathan's 17-year-old son, my only grandchild. He rushed in, still wearing his varsity jacket, clutching a folder. Practice ran long. Hey, Grandma. He kissed my cheek quickly. There's a plate in the warming drawer, I told him. Actually, we need to head to the Parkers for dessert, Nathan said. Tyler, did you bring those school forms for Grandma to sign? Tyler nodded, pulling papers from his folder. Just the field trip authorization, Grandma. Need your signature today since it's due tomorrow. Can't it wait until after dinner? I asked. The Parkers are waiting, Melissa said, already standing. It'll just take a minute. Tyler placed the papers before me, pointing hastily. Just sign here, and initial here. I hesitated. Something felt wrong, but everyone was watching, waiting. Tyler looked anxious. It's just for the Washington, D.C. trip, Grandma. Remember? I told you about it last month. I signed. What grandmother wouldn't? It wasn't until they'd all left, dishes half cleared, that I found the copy that had slipped beneath the table. It wasn't a field trip authorization. It was a power of attorney, giving Nathan control over all my financial decisions. My own grandson had tricked me into signing away my life. The turkey grew cold on the table as I sat alone, staring at the document that would change everything. The next morning, I called Nathan 5 times. Each call went straight to voicemail. On the 6th attempt, he finally answered, his voice clipped with impatience. Mom, I'm heading into a meeting. What's so urgent? The document Tyler had me sign yesterday. It wasn't for a school trip. A pause. Oh, that. Yes, it's just some financial paperwork to help manage things. Nothing to worry about. It's a power of attorney, Nathan. Another pause. Longer this time. Listen, Mom, we're just trying to help, making sure your affairs are in order. Dad would have wanted. Don't you dare tell me what your father would have wanted, I snapped, surprising myself with my vehemence. I want this document rescinded immediately. We'll discuss this later, he said. I really have to go. The line went dead. Charlotte wasn't any more helpful when I called her. It's for your own protection, Mom, she said, her lawyer voice in full effect. We've seen too many seniors getting scammed these days. The only person scamming me is your brother, I replied. Mom, you're being dramatic. Look, I have a client waiting. We'll talk this weekend, okay? I spent the afternoon trying to log into my online banking. Invalid password, the screen taunted me, though I was certain I'd entered it correctly. When I called the bank, they informed me that my account settings had been recently updated and a new login had been created. They could only discuss details with the primary account holder. I am the primary account holder, I insisted. I'm sorry, Mrs. Thompson. Our records show that Nathan Thompson has administrative access now. Bank policy requires. I hung up. 3 days later, my credit card was declined at the garden center where I'd been shopping for 30 years. Marge, the owner, looked at me with pity. Maybe call your son? She suggested gently. I left without my rose bushes, humiliation burning my cheeks. That evening, Charlotte appeared at my door with a smartly dressed woman I'd never met. Mom, this is Diane Keller from Sunset Realty. She's going to help us get the house ready for market. Before I could protest, the woman was walking through my living room, making notes on a tablet. These hardwood floors are lovely, but we'll need to update the kitchen and bathrooms to maximize value, she said, not to me, but to Charlotte. Excuse me, I said, my voice shaking. No one is selling my house. Charlotte placed her hand on my arm. Mom, we've discussed this. It's all arranged. Nathan has already found you a beautiful apartment at Harmony Gardens. Get out, I whispered. Then louder. Get out of my house, both of you. The realtor looked embarrassed, but Charlotte just sighed. Mom, don't make this difficult. Nathan warned me you might be emotional. Emotional? You're trying to sell my home from under me. We'll come back when you're feeling more reasonable, Charlotte said, steering the realtor toward the door. Nathan will be by tomorrow to install some security cameras. For your protection. After they left, I sank into Robert's old armchair, my hands trembling. The phone rang, startling me. I let the answering machine pick up. Eleanor, it's Howard Miller. I've received some concerning documents from Nathan that require your immediate attention. Please call me as soon as possible at my private number. This is troubling. Howard, Robert's oldest friend and our family attorney for decades. If he was concerned, things were worse than I thought. I reached for the phone, then stopped. Nathan could be monitoring my calls. I needed to be smarter than they thought I was. Tuesday afternoons became my window of freedom. Mrs. Peterson, the helpful homemaid Nathan had hired, really a spy in nurse's shoes, took her weekly afternoon off. With the house to myself, I could finally breathe. 3 Tuesdays after Thanksgiving, I slipped into Robert's study, a room that had remained largely untouched since his death. The familiar scent of his sandalwood aftershave still lingered faintly, like a ghost. I ran my fingers along his desk, remembering how he'd sit here in the evenings, glasses perched on his nose, reviewing contracts long after his official retirement. Robert had been meticulous about everything, especially our finances. He wouldn't have left me vulnerable. My eyes drifted to the family portrait on the wall. Robert, myself, Nathan, and Charlotte at Nathan's college graduation. Something tugged at my memory. Robert had always been sentimental about hiding special gifts. I carefully removed the heavy frame from the wall. Behind it, just as I'd suspected, was a small wall safe I'd forgotten about over the years. My heart raced as I turned the dial to the numbers of our first date, 10/17 to 58. The lock clicked open. Inside lay a leather portfolio labeled Contingency in Robert's precise handwriting, along with a sealed envelope addressed to me. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. My dearest Ellie, it began. If you're reading this, I fear my suspicions were correct. Our children have always been ambitious, but Nathan's behavior during our last Christmas together troubled me deeply. The way he pressed about our will, the comments about how we should enjoy retirement by selling the house. I sank into Robert's chair, absorbing his words. He'd suspected our children might try to control our assets. After his heart diagnosis, he'd quietly put protections in place. The portfolio contained detailed documents, financial statements, account numbers, and legal papers I didn't fully understand. Most importantly, there was information about a trust Robert had established for our house, a trust that required my in-person consent before a judge for any changes. At the bottom of the safe was a small key with a tag, Hartford National Bank, Box 427. Attached was a small note. Access instructions with Howard. Joint account remains accessible to you despite my passing. I sat back, mind racing. What else had Robert hidden away? What had he suspected that he couldn't bring himself to tell me? The ringing phone jolted me from my thoughts. The answering machine picked up again. Mrs. Thompson? This is Diana Chen from Elder Rights Legal Services. Howard Miller asked me to reach out. Please call me at your earliest convenience regarding the power of attorney document recently filed by your son. I wrote down the number quickly, then replaced everything in the safe except the key and one account statement showing a bank in the Cayman Islands I'd never known about. I carefully rehung the portrait just as I heard a car pulling into the driveway. Through the window, I watched Nathan unloading security equipment from his trunk. Cameras to monitor my every move. I slipped the key and statement into my bra just before he used his new key to enter without knocking. Mom, I've brought some upgrades for the house. How thoughtful, I replied, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. Would you like some coffee while you work? Nathan looked momentarily surprised by my pleasant tone. Sure, that would be great. I smiled, channeling the agreeable mother he expected me to be. Inside, something had hardened. Robert had prepared for this, and now so would I. Eleanor, you need to understand what's happening here. Ruth Washington's voice was steady as she poured tea into delicate cups that had belonged to her grandmother. My neighbor of 20 years had become my only confidant. What you're describing isn't just family disagreement, it's elder abuse. I flinched at the term. They're my children, Ruth. Who tricked you into signing a power of attorney and are trying to sell your home without consent? Ruth set down the teapot with a decisive clink. Financial abuse is still abuse, Ellie. Rain pattered against the windows of Ruth's sunroom, making the world outside seem distant. I'd waited until Nathan left for a business trip before sneaking next door through our connecting gardens. I called that attorney, Diana Chen, I admitted. She specializes in elder rights cases. Ruth nodded approvingly. Good. What did she say? That the power of attorney is legally binding since I signed it, even under false pretenses, but she thinks we can challenge it based on fraud. We need to be strategic, Ruth said, her social worker instincts kicking in. Nathan's watching you. Those cameras, that Mrs. Peterson monitoring your every move. She tapped her fingers against her cup. We need legitimate reasons for you to leave the house regularly without arousing suspicion. The plan formed over cookies and tea. Ruth would invite me to join various community activities, art classes, book clubs, garden society meetings that would serve as cover for appointments with lawyers, bankers, and doctors. The following Tuesday, I visited Hartford National Bank, the key from Robert's safe burning a hole in my pocket. Ruth waited in the car, my plausible alibi if questioned. The bank manager's eyes widened when I presented the key and my identification. Mrs. Thompson, we've been expecting you. Mr. Thompson made special arrangements before his passing to ensure you would have continued access to this safety deposit box. He was quite insistent about the protocols. He led me to a private room where box 427 waited. Inside was exactly what I needed. $50,000 in cash, account details for offshore investments, and a sealed envelope labeled Howard Miller Confidential. Mrs. Thompson? A gentle knock interrupted my examination. Dr. Marcus Bennett, a geriatric specialist Diana had recommended, stood in the doorway of the examination room later that afternoon. I understand you're seeking a capacity evaluation? I straightened my spine. My children believe I'm incompetent to manage my own affairs. I need documentation proving otherwise. Dr. Bennett's assessment was thorough. Cognitive tests, memory exercises, judgment scenarios. 2 hours later, he handed me his preliminary findings. Mrs. Thompson, you're sharper than most of my patients half your age. There's absolutely no medical justification for removing your decision-making authority. That evening, I met Diana Chen at Ruth's house. Young and fierce, she reminded me of Charlotte before ambition hardened her. The medical evaluation helps, Diana said, reviewing Dr. Bennett's report. But challenging the power of attorney directly might trigger your children to escalate to guardianship proceedings. What are my options? We move carefully. Howard and I will prepare legal countermeasures, but we need to understand what we're dealing with. The trust protecting your house is solid. Robert did good work there. But we need to track what Nathan's doing with your accounts. She slid a burner phone across the table. Use this to contact me. Never from your home phone. Always through Ruth. Back home, I found Mrs. Peterson waiting, arms crossed. Your son called. He was worried when you weren't home this afternoon. Ruth and I joined the community center painting class, I lied smoothly, showing her a brochure Ruth had prepared. It's good for seniors to stay active, don't you think? For the first time since Thanksgiving, I slept soundly. Robert had left me tools to fight back. I just needed to use them wisely. The bank vault felt like a tomb, cool, silent, isolated from the world above. The attendant left me alone with Robert's secret box, closing the heavy door with a respectful nod. My fingers traced the metal container. What final secrets had my husband kept from me? Inside lay stacks of documents, financial records, account statements, and a leather-bound journal I'd never seen before. Robert had kept a diary in his final years. The realization made my throat tighten. How much of him had I missed while he was still here? I opened to a random page, dated 6 months before his death. June 15th. Nathan asked about the Cayman account today. Said nothing. How does he know? Have only discussed with Howard. Nathan, growing increasingly interested in our finances, suggested again we sell the house, move somewhere more manageable. What he means is more sellable after we're gone. My hands trembled as I turned the pages. Robert had documented conversations, suspicions, and disturbingly concerns about his medication. August 3rd. Pills look different today. Nathan organized my weekly pill case again, insisted it would help me. Pressure was dangerously low after morning dose. Called Dr. Levine privately, asked him to check samples, reminded myself to only take medications I've personally confirmed. Cold dread washed over me. Nathan had abandoned medical school after 2 years, but he'd completed advanced pharmacology courses with top grades. His brief medical training had been focused precisely on cardiovascular medicine before he switched careers. He knew enough to be dangerous. A sealed envelope contained a USB drive. I'd need help accessing it, but the label made my heart race. Family conversations, evidence. Most disturbing was a folder labeled Emily Wilson, containing photos of a young woman who looked hauntingly like Charlotte, investigation reports, and Robert's handwritten notes. Must find her before it's too late. She deserves to know. Who was Emily Wilson? Why had finding her been so important to Robert? I photographed key documents using the phone Diana had given me, then carefully returned everything except the USB drive to the box. Ruth was waiting outside, our cover story about fabric shopping at the Ready if anyone questioned our outing. That evening, we visited Ruth's nephew, a computer technician who unlocked the USB drive's contents without asking questions. The audio files made my blood run cold. Nathan's voice. Dad's medication costs a fortune. And for what? To extend things a few more years? Charlotte. Nathan, stop. You can't talk like that. Nathan. I'm being practical. They've had their lives. All that money just sitting there while we're struggling with mortgages and college funds. Another file captured a conversation between my children 3 months after Robert's funeral. Nathan. The Cayman account has nearly $2 million. If we move Mom into assisted living, we can access everything within 6 months. Charlotte, sounding uncomfortable. She doesn't need assisted living, Nathan. Nathan. She will. Trust me. The implications turned my stomach. I sat frozen as the recordings continued, revealing plans that had been forming for years. The children I'd raised, plotting to seize everything Robert and I had built. Ruth placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. This is damning evidence, Ellie. Diana needs to hear this. I nodded, numb. There's something else. A woman named Emily Wilson. Robert was searching for her before he died. Who is she? I don't know. But finding out might be the key to understanding everything else. I pocketed the drive. Robert wanted her found. I'm going to finish what he started. As we drove home, Ruth shot me a concerned glance. You're very calm about all this. I watched raindrops race down the window, picking invisible winners. Shock, maybe. Or perhaps I'm just done being the sweet, agreeable Ellie everyone takes for granted. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something beyond fear and betrayal. Something that burned cleaner, sharper. Resolve. Harmony Gardens looks lovely in the brochures, I told Nathan, smiling as I poured him coffee. He'd arrived unannounced on Saturday morning, likely to check if his cameras were working properly. The garden spaces especially. Nathan nearly choked on his coffee. You're interested in moving there now? I sighed dramatically. You and Charlotte are right. This house is too much for me. I gestured vaguely around the kitchen. I found myself confused about the bills last week. Perhaps it is time to simplify. The transformation in Nathan was immediate. His shoulders relaxed, and genuine warmth replaced the clinical concern he'd been performing. That's great, Mom. I'm glad you're seeing reason. Could you help me with something while you're here? My checkbook doesn't seem to be balancing. Nathan almost smiled as he followed me to Robert's study. I'd staged the desk with bank statements, deliberately creating a chaotic display. As he leaned over to examine them, I secretly photographed the notes he'd made on a legal pad he'd brought. "These accounts were closed last month, Mom," he said, his voice artificially patient. "Remember? We consolidated everything to simplify your finances." "Did we? I'm sorry, I must have forgotten." I blinked rapidly, channeling confusion. "It's all so complicated without Robert." Nathan patted my hand condescendingly. "That's why we're handling things. You just focus on enjoying your garden while you can." The "while you can" sent chills down my spine, but I maintained my performance. "You've always been so smart with money, just like your father." Nathan's expression hardened momentarily at the comparison, then smoothed into practiced concern. "I have some papers for you to sign. Nothing complicated, just updates to the trust." The documents looked official, with post-it notes marking signature lines. I pretended to squint at them. "I can't read this without my glasses. Could you leave them? I'll sign after my nap." "I'll wait," he insisted. "Don't be silly," I waved dismissively. "I need my rest. Charlotte says I get confused when I'm tired." He hesitated, then capitulated. "Fine, I'll be back tomorrow. Make sure you sign everything marked." The moment his car left the driveway, I photographed every page and sent them to Diana through the secure messaging app she'd installed on my burner phone. Her response came within hours. "Do not sign. These would transfer your house from the protected trust into a new entity Nathan controls. Stall him." The next morning, I called Nathan, infusing my voice with quavering confusion. "The strangest thing happened. I can't find those papers anywhere. Did you take them with you?" His frustration was palpable even through the phone. "No, Mom, I left them on the desk." "Well, they're not here now." I paused. "Do you think Mrs. Peterson moved them while cleaning?" "My memory isn't what it used to be." "Jesus Christ," he muttered, thinking I couldn't hear. Then louder, "I'll bring new copies tonight." "Oh, I've promised to help with Ruth's charity bake sale preparations. Can it wait until tomorrow?" Every delay was another day to strengthen my position. Diana and Howard were building a case, documenting Nathan's financial maneuvers. He'd already transferred over $30,000 from my accounts to unknown destinations. That afternoon, Charlotte visited alone. As Nathan had before her, she seemed relieved by my apparent surrender. "The real estate agent thinks we can list by next month," she said, walking through the living room as if mentally redecorating. "The market is perfect right now." "Whatever you think is best, dear," I murmured. As Charlotte surveyed the kitchen, criticizing cabinets that screamed 1990s, I noticed something in her demeanor hesitation, where Nathan showed only calculation. When he stepped outside to take a call, I decided to test my theory. "Charlotte," I said quietly, "are you certain this is what we should do? Selling the house your father loved so much?" She froze, caught off guard by the direct question. "Mom, we've discussed this. It's for your own good." "Is it? Or is it for Nathan's good?" Her eyes darted toward the door. "Nathan is just trying to help. Like he helped your father with his medications?" Charlotte's face paled. "What are you talking about?" Before she could respond, Nathan returned. "The contractors can start next week," he announced, oblivious to the tension. "The upgrades will easily add $50,000 to the asking price." Charlotte forced a smile, but I'd seen it, the flicker of doubt. My perfectly united children had their first crack. That night, I called Diana from Ruth's house. "I need you to find someone for me," I said. "A woman named Emily Wilson. I think she's the key to everything." The splotches of yellow and red paint on my hands looked like bruises in the afternoon light. Ruth's art class alibi had become a genuine hobby, my anger and betrayal finding outlet through brushstrokes. Today's assignment had been transformation, ironic given my circumstances. "Wonderful texture, Eleanor," the instructor had praised, not knowing that each violent stroke represented a betrayal discovered. Back home, I headed straight for the attic, where Charlotte had suggested I start decluttering. Her real aim was to pressure me into discarding memories that anchored me to the house. Today, I was happy to comply, but with my own agenda. The attic was dusty and familiar, filled with labeled boxes chronicling our family history. I deliberately made noise, ensuring Mrs. Peterson would report my compliance to Nathan. She checked on me twice, her helpful suggestions barely masking her surveillance. "Are you getting rid of these old photographs, Mrs. Thompson?" she asked, fingering a box labeled Family Photos 1970, 1985. "Just organizing," I replied. "Charlotte thinks I should digitize the important ones." Mrs. Peterson nodded approvingly and retreated. I waited until her footsteps faded before opening the box I'd actually come for, labeled Robert Before Marriage. Inside were photos I'd rarely examined. Robert in college, Robert with his parents, Robert with friends I'd never met. Near the bottom, partially stuck to another photo, was an image that stopped my breath. Robert, much younger, with his arm around a beautiful dark-haired woman. Between them stood a small girl, perhaps 2 or 3 years old, with Robert's unmistakable eyes. I turned it over with trembling fingers. Faded handwriting read, Robert, Sarah, and Emily, 1978. Emily, the name from the mysterious file, the woman Robert had been searching for. I stared at the photograph. Emotions churning. Robert and I had married in 1980, when Emily would have been only 2. He'd had a child, a daughter, and married me without ever mentioning her existence. For 40 years he'd kept this secret, building our perfect family while another child grew up without him. The betrayal felt fresh and sharp, different from my children's machinations, but painful nonetheless. How could he have kept this from me? What else hadn't he told me about his life before me? I carefully tucked the photo into my pocket, my hands shaking with a new kind of anger, one directed at the husband I thought I'd known completely. My burner phone vibrated. Diana's text was brief. "Progress on Wilson case. Can you meet?" Ruth's sunroom had become our war room. Diana arrived with a slim folder and a somber expression. "Emily Wilson is Robert's daughter," she confirmed, sliding a document across the table. "Born to Sarah Wilson in 1978. Robert paid minimal child support until Sarah stopped pursuing it when Emily was 10. "His daughter," I whispered. "He had a child before we met. He never told you?" I shook my head, tears threatening. "We married in 1980. Emily was just a toddler. All these years—" My voice broke. "I thought I knew him completely." Diana reached out, squeezing my hand. "People are complex, Eleanor. Sometimes they make choices they later regret. There's more," Diana continued gently. "Howard finally found the most recent version of Robert's will. There's a codicillo, an amendment that includes provisions for, quote, any biological children not previously acknowledged. Howard believes Robert added this after learning of his heart condition, knowing he might not have time to find Emily himself, so she's entitled to a portion of his estate." The realization dawned slowly. "A portion Nathan and Charlotte don't know exists." Diana nodded. "If we can locate her and confirm paternity, Emily would legally be entitled to an equal share of Robert's estate. A third sibling would disrupt everything," I murmured. Mind racing. Nathan's calculations, his plans for the money. "Exactly. And it would give us significant leverage." I stared at the photograph again. The little girl's smile, so like Charlotte's at that age, pierced my heart. Had Robert loved her mother? Had he regretted his choice? The man I'd built a life with suddenly seemed like a stranger. "Howard believes the will is solid," Diana continued. "But we should move quickly. My investigator is following leads in the Pacific Northwest. Emily Wilson appears to be a professor at a university in Seattle. I need to find her myself," I said firmly. "Not just for leverage. She deserves to know the truth. And I need to understand this part of Robert's life." Diana looked concerned. "That would mean leaving town for several days. Nathan would notice. Not if I have a good cover story." I turned to Ruth. "Doesn't your garden club have that regional competition coming up?" Ruth caught on immediately. "The Northwest Botanical Exhibition, in Portland. It's perfect." Diana still seemed hesitant. "This is risky, Eleanor. If Nathan realizes you're investigating—" "He won't," I said, newfound determination strengthening my voice. "He thinks I'm a confused old woman who can't remember where she left her reading glasses. That's exactly what I'll let him keep believing." I looked again at the faded photograph. The woman Sarah was beautiful in a way I'd never been, with wild dark hair and an artistic flair evident even in a snapshot. Had Robert compared us? Had he regretted his choice? It didn't matter now. Finding Emily was the mission Robert had left unfinished. I would complete it, not just for leverage against my treacherous children, but because somewhere in Seattle, was a woman who deserved to know her father had finally tried to find her. Make the arrangements, I told Diana. I'm going to Seattle. Rain pounded the windows of the small cafe near the University of Washington campus. Seattle in February was even grayer than I'd imagined, the constant drizzle matching my mood as I waited, stomach knotted with anxiety. Mrs. Thompson? A voice broke through my thoughts. I looked up to see a woman in her mid-40s standing beside my table, dark hair cut in a stylish bob, intelligent eyes behind tortoiseshell glasses, a cautious expression that gave nothing away. I would have known her anywhere. She had Robert's profile, his determined chin. Emily, I said, rising. Thank you for coming. Professor Wilson, please. Her tone was polite but cool as she slid into the seat across from me. Your email was unexpected. I'd carefully crafted my first contact through the university's faculty directory. I have information about your biological father, Robert Thompson. I believe you may be entitled to a portion of his estate, clinical and direct, nothing that would scare her away. I understand this must be a shock, I began. Why now? She interrupted. He died 5 years ago, according to your email. Why are you suddenly interested in finding me? The accusation hung between us. I decided honesty was the only approach, because I only discovered your existence 3 weeks ago. Robert was searching for you before his death. I'm finishing what he started. Emily's expression remained guarded. And you're his widow. We were married for 43 years. She flinched slightly. So you're the family he chose. The bitterness in her voice was justified. I opened my bag and carefully laid out the documents I'd brought. The photograph from the attic, Robert's notes, and lastly, the letter he'd written to Emily but never sent. He regretted abandoning you, I said softly. In his final years, he was trying to make amends. Emily stared at the items, her professional composure cracking slightly. She picked up the photograph, studying it with an unreadable expression. I have no memory of him, she said finally. My mother never spoke about him except to say he wasn't interested in being a father. She raised me alone. Is your mother alive? Yes. Parkinson's disease, advanced stages. Her clinical tone couldn't hide the pain behind the words. I'm her caretaker now. I pushed Robert's letter toward her. He wrote this for you. He never had the chance to send it. Emily hesitated before taking it. As she read, her hands began to tremble slightly. Robert had poured his regret onto those pages, his shame at yielding to family pressure, his pride in discovering through the investigator that she'd become a respected academic, his hope that she might someday forgive him. Pretty words, she said finally, setting the letter down. 40 years too late. He also changed his will to include you, I said, equal to his other children. That caught her attention. Other children? Nathan and Charlotte. My children with Robert. I paused. The children who are now trying to take everything from me. Over the next hour, I explained the situation, the fraudulent power of attorney, the attempts to sell my home, the evidence suggesting Nathan may have tampered with Robert's medication. Emily listened with growing disbelief. Why tell me all this? What do you want from me? Legally, you're entitled to 1/3 of Robert's estate. Your claim would disrupt Nathan's plans completely. Emily's laugh was sharp. So I'm a weapon in your family war? No, thank you. That's not... I started, then stopped myself. Perhaps partly, yes, but Robert wanted you to know the truth. You deserve that much at least. She stood abruptly. I need time to process this. Don't contact me again. Emily, wait. I reached for her arm, but she pulled away. Professor Wilson, she corrected coldly. My mother struggled for decades while your husband built his perfect family. Now you want my help? I'm sorry for your situation, Mrs. Thompson, but your family problems aren't mine. I watched her leave, disappointment washing over me. I'd pinned too many hopes on this meeting. Diana had been right. Personal involvement complicated things. Back at my hotel, I sat on the edge of the bed, exhausted. My phone buzzed with a text from Ruth. Nathan called twice, getting suspicious. Mrs. Peterson reported you missed your medication schedule. I was running out of time. Tomorrow I'd fly back to Connecticut. My mission apparently failed. I switched on the television for distraction, only to find myself staring at a familiar face, Emily Wilson, speaking passionately at a literary conference. The Chiron identified her as an expert on ethical representation in modern literature. Ethics. Perhaps there was hope yet. 3 days later, after I'd returned to Connecticut and resumed my charade of compliance, my burner phone rang with an unknown number. Mrs. Thompson? It's Emily. I've been thinking about our conversation. Her voice was different, still guarded, but less hostile. I spoke with my mother about what you told me. She confirmed some details about her relationship with Robert that she'd never shared before. I appreciate you calling, I said carefully, not wanting to spook her. I'm still processing everything, she continued, but I can't ignore this entirely. My mother's medical needs are significant, and if I'm legally entitled to a portion of Robert's estate, you are, I confirmed. With a DNA test to prove paternity, your claim is ironclad. A long pause followed. I'm not doing this for him, she finally said, and I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for my mother, who raised me alone while he built another family. I understand, I said, meaning it completely. The DNA testing, how would that work? It's a simple process. We can arrange it through a lab with branches in both Seattle and Hartford. It would take a few weeks to get results. Emily sighed. I'll need to think about it more, but I'm considering it. It wasn't a full commitment, but it was a start. As I hung up, I felt a complex mix of emotions, relief that Emily hadn't rejected the idea outright, guilt over Robert's abandonment of her, and cautious hope that she might eventually help me reclaim what was rightfully mine. 2 weeks later, Emily called again. I'll do the test, she said without preamble. For my mother's sake, not his. Thank you, I said simply. Don't thank me yet, she replied. I haven't decided what I'll do if the results confirm what you're claiming. But we both knew. The wheels were in motion. The test was arranged, samples collected, and the waiting began. While we waited, Emily and I spoke several times, our conversations gradually evolving from stilted exchanges to something resembling cautious respect. She asked questions about Robert, not the father who abandoned her, but the man he became. I found myself being honest about his strengths and flaws, giving her a fuller picture than the idealized version I might have created weeks earlier. In return, she shared glimpses of her life, her academic career, her relationship with her mother, the challenges of balancing caregiving with her professional responsibilities. With each conversation, the abstract Emily Wilson from Robert's files became more real, a woman of substance, integrity, and quiet determination. I began to see her not just as leverage against Nathan, but as someone who deserved to know her place in the Thompson family, regardless of how we had arrived at this point. You're doing well with the garden club competitions, Eleanor, Nathan remarked, scrolling through his phone as we sat in Howard Miller's waiting room. His tone was casual, but I caught the underlying suspicion. Portland last month, now this meeting in Hartford. Ruth says I have a talent for flower arrangement, I replied mildly. It's nice to feel useful at my age. Nathan glanced up, studying me. I'd been playing the role of increasing docility for weeks, making small mistakes that reinforced his belief in my declining capabilities while secretly building my case. The meeting shouldn't take long, he said, just finalizing the trust restructuring Howard's been working on. I nodded agreeably, knowing exactly what awaited him inside. 6 weeks had passed since my trip to Seattle. Emily's DNA test had confirmed what the photographs already showed, 99.8% probability of paternity. Robert Thompson was unquestionably her biological father. The testing had taken longer than anticipated, nearly a month for the collection, processing, and verification. During that time, Emily had moved from reluctant participant to cautious ally, her decision influenced not just by her mother's needs, but by the growing evidence of Nathan's manipulations that Diana had shared with her. Howard's door opened. Nathan, Eleanor, please come in. Nathan strode confidently into the office, then froze. Instead of the simple signing meeting he expected, the room held Diana Chen, Dr. Bennett, Howard, and a woman Nathan had never seen before. What is this? He demanded, looking from face to face. Please sit down, Nathan, Howard said, his tone formal in a way I'd never heard before. We have important matters to discuss. If this is about the trust restructuring, it's not, I interrupted, dropping the docile act. It's about what you've been doing with my finances, about the power of attorney you tricked me into signing, and about your sister. Charlotte isn't here, he said, confusion evident. Not Charlotte, I replied. Emily. The unknown woman stepped forward, extending her hand. Emily Wilson Thompson, Robert's daughter. Nathan stared at her, incomprehension turning slowly to shock as he registered her familiar features. This is ridiculous. Dad didn't have another child. DNA confirms otherwise, Diana said, sliding a document across the table. as does your father's will, which explicitly includes provisions for, and I quote, any biological children not previously acknowledged. Nathan's face flushed. This is absurd. Some random woman shows up claiming to be Dad's kid, and you're buying it? Mom, you can't be serious. Very serious, Howard interjected, as are the financial discrepancies we've uncovered. He opened a folder. Since obtaining power of attorney, you've transferred over $87,000 from your mother's accounts to various destinations, including substantial payments to Rebecca Lawson in Boston. Nathan's face went from red to white. You've been spying on me? Protecting my client, Diana corrected. Mrs. Thompson retained me to investigate potential financial abuse, which we've documented extensively. Dr. Bennett spoke next. I've conducted a thorough evaluation of Mrs. Thompson's cognitive abilities. She demonstrates no impairment that would justify removing her financial autonomy. Nathan turned to me, fury and disbelief warring in his expression. You planned this? All of it? The confusion? The compliance? It was an act? Not all of it, I said quietly. The hurt was real, Nathan. The betrayal was real. His eyes darted to Emily, who stood silently observing. And you, what do you want? Money? You think you can waltz in after 47 years and claim part of our family's? Your father's estate, Emily corrected coolly, which legally includes me, whether you like it or not. Howard cleared his throat. Nathan, with the evidence we've compiled, we could pursue this through the courts. Financial elder abuse carries serious penalties in Connecticut. We could also investigate the circumstances around your father's death, given his notes about medication tampering. Nathan's face contorted. That's a lie. I never. We have your father's journals, I said, and the results of tests he had done on pills you gave him. The room fell silent. Nathan's breathing came in short bursts as the full implications sank in. What do you want? He finally asked. Defeated. Diana laid out our terms. The power of attorney would be rescinded immediately. All transferred funds would be returned. The house would remain in the protected trust with me as sole trustee. And most importantly, Emily would be legally recognized as Robert's daughter, entitled to an equal share of his estate. This is extortion, Nathan muttered. This is justice, Emily countered. For your mother, and for mine. Nathan glared at me. Did you think about what this means for our family? For Charlotte? For Tyler? I thought about little else, I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. But you forced this, Nathan, when you decided I was a problem to be managed rather than your mother to be respected. He stood abruptly. I need to consult my own attorney. Of course, Howard said, but be aware that any attempt to transfer or hide additional assets will only strengthen the case against you. After Nathan stormed out, Emily approached me hesitantly. Are you all right? I nodded, though my hands trembled slightly. It's not over. He'll fight back. We're prepared for that, Diana assured me. What none of us was prepared for was the call that came that evening from Charlotte. Mom! Her voice shook with emotion. What have you done? Nathan just told me everything. About Emily? About the investigation? He says you're accusing him of killing Dad. Is that true? The pain in her voice cut through my armor. Not exactly, but there are serious questions about your father's medication in his final months. This will destroy our family, she whispered. You and Nathan were already destroying it, I replied, finding strength I didn't know I had. I'm just refusing to be the casualty. The sun filtered through Ruth's kitchen window, casting warm patterns on the table where Charlotte sat across from me, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. 2 days had passed since the confrontation in Howard's office. 2 days of revelations and reckonings. I need to understand, Charlotte said, her voice hoarse. All of it. I pushed a cup of tea toward her. What has Nathan told you? That you've teamed up with Dad's secret love child to steal our inheritance? She laughed bitterly. He's saying you're being manipulated by your lawyers, that you're not thinking clearly. And you believe him? Charlotte stared into her tea. I don't know what to believe anymore. Dad had another daughter he never told us about? You've been pretending to be confused while building a legal case against us? Nathan might have... She couldn't finish the sentence. I slid my tablet across the table. Listen to these recordings. Your father made them during family gatherings in his final year. Charlotte's hand shook as she pressed play. Her own voice emerged, younger and harder. We're just saying, Dad, the house is a massive asset sitting there while property values peak. If you and Mom downsized, Nathan's voice cut in. You're both in your 70s. It's time to be practical. Robert, sounding tired. This house is your mother's joy. I won't uproot her to fund your lifestyle upgrades. Nathan, angry now. That's not fair. We have responsibilities, expenses. Robert, so did I at your age. I worked for what I have. I didn't expect my parents to liquidate their lives for my convenience. The recording ended. Charlotte's face had crumpled. There's more, I said gently. About your father's medication? About the Cayman accounts Nathan was so interested in? About his plans for the house after your father died? Stop, Charlotte whispered. I remember these conversations. I was there. She covered her face. I thought we were helping. Nathan said you and Dad weren't thinking practically, that we needed to protect the family assets. By taking them from us? It wasn't supposed to be like that. She looked up, tears streaming now. Nathan said we'd make sure you were comfortable, that we'd just manage things better than you could. I never thought that he would go so far, I finished. Neither did I. Charlotte took a deep, shuddering breath. The day after Dad's funeral, Nathan came to me with documents. He said Dad had told him about accounts offshore, investments we needed to consolidate before they were lost in probate. I signed things I didn't fully read. I trusted him. Like Tyler trusted him when he tricked me into signing the power of attorney? She flinched. Nathan told Tyler it was for your protection, that you were making financial mistakes. Tyler was just trying to help his grandmother. I reached across the table, taking her hand. Charlotte, I need to know. How much did you know about your father's medication? She shook her head vehemently. Nothing about that, I swear. Nathan offered to manage Dad's pills because of his medical background. But I never thought... Her voice broke. Mom, did Nathan kill Dad? The question hung between us, terrible and unavoidable. I don't know, I admitted. Your father suspected Nathan was tampering with his heart medication, making it stronger or adding other drugs. The autopsy listed his death as a heart attack, which was expected given his condition. But the timing... Charlotte pulled her hand away, wrapping her arms around herself. He has a second family, she said abruptly. In Boston, a woman named Rebecca and a son, 8 years old. The confirmation of Howard's findings still shocked me. How long have you known? 3 years. I found receipts, plane tickets. When I confronted him, he swore it was just a business relationship gone too far, that he was ending it. She laughed bitterly. I believed him because it was easier than facing the truth about my brother. And the money transfers from my accounts? He told me it was for investment opportunities that required quick action, that he'd return it with interest. She looked up, devastation plain on her face. I was an accomplice, wasn't I? Legally, ethically. I helped him manipulate you. Yes, I said simply. You did. What happens now? Will you press charges? I studied my daughter, seeing for the first time in years the vulnerability beneath her polished exterior. That depends on you, Charlotte. And on Nathan. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then back at me with widening eyes. It's Nathan. He says he's at your house right now. Says we need to finish this before it goes any further. I was already standing, grabbing my purse. Call Diana. Tell her to meet us there. Mom, if he's unstable, then I need to face him before anyone else gets hurt. The drive to my house was silent. Charlotte white-knuckled at the wheel. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw Nathan's car parked haphazardly on the lawn. The front door stood open. Stay here, I told Charlotte. No way, she replied. Following me up the walk, we found Nathan in Robert's study, rifling through the desk drawers. When he heard us, he spun around, eyes wild. Where is it? He demanded. Dad's journal. The recordings. I know you have them. It's over, Nathan, I said calmly. Charlotte knows everything. She doesn't know shit, he spat. She just believes whatever she's told. By Dad, by you, by me. Always the follower. Charlotte flinched, but stood her ground. I know about Rebecca, she said quietly. About your son. About the money you've been stealing. Not stealing, he snarled. Taking what I deserve. What Dad would have given us if he wasn't so stuck in his outdated principles. Did you tamper with his medication? I asked directly. Nathan's laugh was ugly. Is that what you think? That I murdered my own father? I just substituted generics sometimes when his prescriptions ran out. Saved us money. Generics with higher dosages, I pressed. You knew what you were doing with those substitutions. I knew his heart was a ticking time bomb anyway. All I did was accelerate the inevitable. His voice broke slightly. I needed the money. Rebecca was threatening to tell Melissa everything if I didn't support them properly. Charlotte gasped. Oh my God, Nathan. Don't act so shocked, Char. You benefited too. The Aspen condo renovations? Where did you think that money came from? Stop it, I commanded, stepping between them. This ends now. We can still resolve this as a family, Nathan. Return the money, accept Emily's place in the family, and get help. Accept that bitch as our sister? After Dad hid her from us our entire lives? His face contorted. No, I'm not giving up everything I've worked for because Dad couldn't keep it in his pants 40 years ago. The sound of a throat clearing froze us all. In the doorway stood Emily, elegant and composed, despite the scene before her. Hello, Nathan, she said quietly. I think it's time we finally met properly. I'm your sister, whether you like it or not. Nathan stared at her, his anger crumbling into something more complex as he took in the unmistakable resemblance to the father we'd all lost. Rain pounded against the windows of Howard's office as our fractured family sat around his conference table. 3 weeks had passed since the confrontation at my house, weeks of tense negotiations, legal maneuvering, and painful revelations. The legal process moved slowly, but Howard had expedited matters through his connections and the unique circumstances of our case. The terms are straightforward, Diana said, sliding documents across the polished surface. Mrs. Thompson retains full control of all her assets. The power of attorney is rescinded. The house remains in its protected trust. Nathan sat stiffly in his chair, eyes downcast. Beside him, his attorney, a corporate shark named Phillips, reviewed each page with clinical detachment. Regarding the misappropriated funds, Diana continued, Nathan will return the full $87,432 within 90 days. No criminal charges will be filed regarding the financial improprieties, provided full compliance. And the other matter? Phillips asked carefully. Howard cleared his throat. Mrs. Thompson has agreed not to pursue an investigation into Robert's death, despite the concerning evidence in his journals. This agreement is contingent upon Nathan seeking professional help and providing proof of ongoing treatment. I had wrestled with this decision for days. Part of me wanted justice if Nathan had indeed hastened Robert's death. But another part, the mother who had once held my son as a newborn, couldn't bear the thought of him facing criminal charges, especially when the evidence was circumstantial. The compromise felt right, even if it wasn't perfect justice. Charlotte, seated beside me, squeezed my hand under the table. She'd spent the weeks in a daze of grief and guilt, finally seeing the full extent of her brother's manipulations. Her statement to Diana had been devastating in its details, years of Nathan's increasing control over family finances, his fixation on securing their inheritance, the changes in his behavior after establishing his second family. Finally, Diana said, the amended family trust acknowledges Emily Wilson Thompson as Robert's biological daughter and legal heir, entitled to an equal share of his estate alongside Nathan and Charlotte. Emily, dignified in a charcoal suit that reminded me painfully of Robert, nodded slightly. She'd flown in yesterday after arranging temporary care for her mother. We'd spent a long evening talking not as adversaries or allies, but as two women connected by a man who had shaped both our lives in profoundly different ways. This is highway robbery, Nathan muttered, but his heart wasn't in it. The fight had drained from him after Emily's appearance at the house. Something about seeing her, the living proof of his father's secret life, had punctured his righteous anger. You should be in prison, Charlotte shot back. You're getting off easy. Phillips touched Nathan's arm warningly. My client accepts the terms. One by one, we signed. With each signature, I felt weights lifting from my shoulders, the betrayal, the fear, the uncertainty that had shadowed me since Thanksgiving. As pens were capped and folders closed, Nathan finally looked at me directly. Was any of it real? He asked, his voice barely audible. What? The confusion, the memory issues, or was it all an act to trap me? I held his gaze. I'm your mother, Nathan. I've never been confused about who I am or what matters to me. You were the one who convinced yourself I needed to be managed, controlled, diminished. I was trying to protect our legacy, he insisted. But the words sounded hollow, even to him. Robert's legacy includes all his children, I replied, glancing at Emily, including the one he regretted abandoning. Perhaps that's something you should consider, with your own situation in Boston. Nathan flinched as if struck. Charlotte had told me the full story. His affair with Rebecca had begun during Melissa's difficult first pregnancy. When Rebecca became pregnant herself, Nathan had made different choices than Robert had, financially supporting them in secret rather than abandoning them entirely. But his solution had created a web of lies that eventually demanded my financial sacrifice. "Melissa's filing for divorce," he said quietly. "She took Tyler to her parents in Chicago. I don't think he'll speak to me again." Despite everything, my heart ached for my son. "Tyler loves you. Give him time." Nathan stood abruptly. "I need to go." As he reached the door, Emily called after him. "Nathan." He turned reluctantly. "I didn't come here to destroy your family," she said. "I came because my mother needs specialized medical care I can't afford on a professor's salary. That's all." "How convenient that our father's money solved your problem." Emily didn't rise to the bait. "I never knew him." "You had 40 years with him. Remember that when you're tallying up life's injustices." After Nathan and his attorney departed, Charlotte slumped in her chair. "What happens now?" she asked, looking from me to Emily. "How do we move forward from this?" "One day at a time," I said, suddenly feeling every one of my 63 years. With truth instead of manipulation. With respect instead of control. Emily gathered her papers methodically. "I'm returning to Seattle tomorrow. My mother's care needs to be arranged properly now that the financial situation is resolved." "Will you come back?" I asked, surprising myself with how much I wanted her to say yes. She hesitated. "Perhaps. There's still much I want to understand about Robert, about the choice he made that shaped all our lives." As we prepared to leave, Howard pulled me aside. "You know, Nathan might still cause problems. This agreement doesn't change who he is." "I know," I replied, "but it changes who I am. I'm not the passive, agreeable Ellie anymore. I won't be silenced again." Outside, the rain had stopped. Charlotte offered to drive me home, but I declined. "I need a moment alone. I'll take a cab." Instead, I found myself walking the 3 blocks to the cemetery where Robert was buried. His grave was simple. He'd never wanted ostentation. I stood before the headstone, unsure what I'd come to say. "You should have told me," I finally whispered, "about Emily, about your suspicions regarding Nathan. We could have faced it together." A gentle breeze rustled the newly budding trees. Spring was coming, bringing its promise of renewal after the long, dark winter. "But you did prepare me, didn't you? In your own way. You left breadcrumbs, knowing I'd follow them if necessary." I touched the cool marble. "I'm finishing what you started, Robert. I just wish you were here to see it." As I turned to leave, I spotted a figure hovering uncertainly at the cemetery entrance. Emily. Our eyes met across the distance, and after a moment's hesitation, she walked toward me toward her father's grave, closing the gap between past and present, between what was lost and what might still be found. "The blue hydrangeas are spectacular this year, don't you think?" I adjusted my sun hat against the June sunshine, surveying the garden that had become my sanctuary and symbol of renewal. Ruth nodded appreciatively. "Your best showing yet. The garden club judges will be impressed." A year had passed since the confrontation that had redrawn the boundaries of my life. The garden, always my passion, had flourished under my renewed attention, each bloom a testament to patience and resilience. "Mom?" Charlotte's voice called from the patio. "The caterers need to know where to set up the drink station." "Under the oak," I replied, "where the shade is deepest." Today marked a milestone none of us could have imagined 12 months ago. The official launch of the Thompson Family Foundation for Elder Protection. The garden party would bring together supporters, potential donors, and professionals dedicated to preventing others from experiencing what I had endured. Charlotte had thrown herself into the foundation's creation, channeling her legal expertise and guilt into something constructive. Her own transformation had been remarkable, from corporate attorney focused on billable hours to passionate advocate for elder rights. She'd even taken a leave of absence from her firm to serve as the foundation's first executive director. "Grandma!" Tyler bounded across the lawn, taller than when I'd last seen him 3 months ago. At 18, he was preparing for college, the Thanksgiving deception seemingly a lifetime ago. "The banner looks amazing. Did you see it?" I smiled, accepting his enthusiastic hug. "Not yet. Show me." He led me proudly to the front of the house, where a professional banner announced, "The Thompson Family Foundation, protecting dignity, ensuring justice." Below it, in smaller text, "Founded in memory of Robert Thompson." My throat tightened. "It's perfect. Dad said he might stop by later." Tyler added hesitantly. If that's okay. Of course it is, I assured him. Nathan's journey had been the most difficult. After months of therapy and a painful divorce, he'd begun the slow process of rebuilding relationships. He'd formally acknowledged his son Jake, now spending weekends with him in a small apartment that reflected his dramatically changed circumstances. The financial restitution had forced him to sell his home and liquidate investments, but the humbling seemed to have sparked genuine reflection. Our relationship remained fragile. Trust shattered isn't easily restored, but we were finding a new way forward. He'd declined a formal role in the foundation, but had contributed his medical knowledge to educational materials about medication safety for caregivers. Mrs. Peterson was long gone, of course. After our confrontation, I dismissed her immediately, explaining simply that her services were no longer required. Last I'd heard, she'd found work with a family in the next county, hopefully one where she wouldn't be expected to spy on her employer. The sound of a car door closing drew my attention to the driveway where Emily was helping her mother from a taxi. Sarah Wilson, frail but alert in her wheelchair, had made the journey from Seattle for the foundation launch, her first major outing since starting the specialized treatment Emily had arranged with her inheritance. I hurried over to greet them. Sarah, I'm so glad you could come. The guest room is ready whenever you need to rest. Sarah smiled, her hands trembling slightly from the Parkinson's that had brought mother and daughter back into our lives. Wouldn't miss it. Besides, I wanted to see the house Robert built, the life he chose. There was no bitterness in her tone, just the wisdom of a woman who had made peace with old wounds. Over the past year, Sarah and I had developed an unlikely friendship through video calls arranged by Emily. We'd shared stories of the different Roberts we had known, her passionate young law student and my steadfast husband and father. Emily squeezed my hand as we walked toward the house. The foundation website already has 15 requests for legal assistance. Charlotte's outreach is working. At 48, Emily had become an unexpected blessing in my life, neither replacement daughter nor adversary, but a bridge to understanding parts of Robert I'd never known. She'd taken a sabbatical from teaching to write a book about family secrets and reconciliation, drawing from our story while changing names to protect privacy. The garden gradually filled with guests. Howard and Diana arrived together, their professional relationship having evolved into something more personal over countless strategy sessions. Ruth brought her famous lemon tarts and her innate gift for making strangers feel welcome. As I stood to address the gathering, I caught sight of Nathan slipping quietly into the back row. Our eyes met briefly, acknowledgement, not yet forgiveness, but perhaps someday. Welcome, everyone, I began. The Thompson Family Foundation was born from personal experience with financial elder abuse. When my late husband Robert foresaw potential vulnerabilities, he left protections in place, breadcrumbs for me to follow if needed. Not everyone is so fortunate. I gestured to Charlotte and Emily, who joined me at the front. With the expertise of my daughters, yes, both of them, we've created resources to help other families avoid the painful lessons we learned. The word daughters hung in the air, its healing power washing over us. Emily's eyes glistened as she took the microphone. My father made choices that separated our family for decades, she said. But through Eleanor's courage, we've found a way to transform that legacy into something meaningful. Charlotte spoke next about the Foundation's three-pronged approach: education, legal advocacy, and emergency support for elders in crisis. As she detailed cases already underway, her passion was evident. This wasn't corporate obligation, this was purpose. After the speeches, as guests mingled over champagne and canapés, I found myself alone for a moment on the garden bench where Robert and I had spent countless evenings. From here, I could see the full tableau. Charlotte, deep in conversation with potential donors, Emily showing Sarah the roses, Tyler helping an elderly guest navigate the stone pathway, and Nathan, standing awkwardly at the periphery, attempting to belong again. Our family had been shattered and reassembled into something different, more inclusive, more honest, and ultimately, more resilient. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed us had instead forced us to rebuild on a foundation of truth. I thought about the frightened, angry woman I'd been that Thanksgiving night, staring at a document that represented my children's betrayal. I barely recognized her now. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who had discovered that age didn't diminish her voice, but gave it new authority. You would have liked this, I whispered to Robert's memory. The family together, the truth finally told. A soft breeze stirred the hydrangeas, sending their sweet scent across the garden. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, incomplete reconciliations, ongoing healing. But today, in this moment, the silence that had nearly imprisoned me had been transformed into my greatest strength, not through vengeance, but through reclaiming my own voice and helping others find theirs. The legacy of silence had become a legacy of truth. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel and don't miss the next video with more stories that will touch your heart.